bought this house to shoot a film in, and we had started production designing it and painting everything when we realized that we had to shoot in a studio because we were in Dallas, and there's no place hotter on the face of the earth than Dallas during the summers. And she said, go ahead and keep that room pink. I like that. And I said, I'm going to turn it into a 60s, 70s room. And she said, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard of. And I said, just wait. And that's one of our favorite rooms in the house.
That's great.
But yeah, so it's films and television and music, all from the 60s and 70s in here.
Nice.
Yeah. And we are now on Films Gone Wild. Finnerty, Jack, introduce yourselves and tell us what you did in the film. And then Jack, you introduce our audiences to before, during, after, and tell them what this film is about.
Okay.
So Finnerty, you start.
Okay, great. I'm Finnerty Steeves. I'm the actor, writer, producer of Before, During, After.
And Jack.
My name's Jack Lewars. I'm one of the co-directors for Before, During, After. So essentially, Before, During, After is Finnerty's story. It's a personal story that she has written. I don't know, how long did it take you to write, Finnerty? I don't remember.
Over a couple of years.
Over a couple of years.
Yeah.
It's still fairly fresh personal story to her that I got to read the script and was very much so, thought it was written fantastically. And it's about her going through a divorce. I don't know how to say other than, it's humorous, but yet dark, and I don't know, just Finnerty, you're much better at pitching the movie.
Something, let me see, as someone who really enjoyed the movie, let me jump in and say that it's a view of an actresses, I always like to refer to as women as actors, who's gone through a breakup and dealing with the idea of betrayal of trust that we go through when we're told, I'm going to be with you forever. And then we find out, apparently you were wrong when you said you were going to be with me forever. And that combined with everything that an actor goes through as they pursue a career, and I'm bombarded by all the insecurities and angst that any actor knows and loves. And
perfect.
And loves. Okay. All right.
Thanks.
There are a couple things I want to talk about. One, we say before, during, and after, but it's actually, we'll have a little bit of after, and then we'll give you some before, and then back to some after, and now some during, and back to some before, then after, and then and it really goes back. It is not a simple before, during, after. We are playing with the timeline because that's what we do in our heads, right? In our heads, it's all playing, at that. So let's start with talking about writing it, Finnerty, because it is your story, and these are things that are either reflective of what happened to you or may have directly happened to you. So they are emotional and in their underpinnings there, and yet you also have to make a coherent script so we can follow with you even if we don't know who the hell you are, right?
Right.
So talk about that process for you.
As an actor, I've always wanted to write something, but I didn't really have a story to tell until this one. When it's based on my first marriage falling apart. And I wanted to try to write, but I didn't really know how to do that. So I signed up for this class, and I started, this like extended education class at NYU. And I just started sharing some of these scenes that were the main memories that I would keep playing over and over in my head, the good and the bad memories, but the ones that I would circle back on. And so I would sort of share these scenes, and the teacher, Jason Greif, who ended up being like a mentor to me and invited me to be a part of his writers group. And he was like, this is your story. You have us riveted. You're telling it to us out of order. We know just enough to be invested, but it also feels like divorce to me. He's like, it feels messy. And how can that be true if that other scene you read last week was true? so that became the thing that I thought, well, I can run with this idea. I love this idea. So, and I, that's how it came to be. So I just had all of these scenes and then decided that I wanted to put them together in an order that made sense for her journey. And depending on who's watching this and when, without giving anything away, we do learn that it is that there are bookends to this film, and that she is in a place where she is using the memories to move forward. So that was also a challenge in the edit of figuring out the emotional linearity, because sometimes we would figure out one part and we're like, yes, that's perfect, but then something else doesn't make sense, and now we're like that now makes it seem like they got back together. So it was a Rubik's cube, to put it together in a way that made sense.
Yeah, when we were making it, we wanted the film to feel very stream of conscious. Like these were the kind of recycling ideas that were popping up into her head, and we knew that they wouldn't be so linear. And the script was not written in a linear fashion. However, when we got to the editing process, since all the scenes were vignettes, we literally, switched and swapped every scene around 100 times, looked at it in every kind of iteration, and ultimately in the end, we kind of got back to what the script was, which was funny, but it worked. But since you had so many options, you really just had to see for yourself, and like Finnerty was saying, you'd put something and it would work great for 5 scenes in a row, but then it would knock out the next 7 after that, so it just kind of fell back into place. But I'm glad that you got that from the film.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And then the other thing that I was delighted, you have such a wonderful rogues gallery of awesome character veteran actors in this, and John Pankow, Austin Pendleton, Richard Mazer, Michael Emerson. I mean, these are guys and women that I was watching it going, if I had a dinner party of people that would have like the most awesome acting and filmmaking stories, this movie would be it. So talk about, how you assembled this cast, because it is just a delight.
It's incredible. We had Amy Christopher and Marcia DeBonis were on board to help us cast. And our, Jack co-directed along with Stephen Kunkin. And so Stephen is a great actor also. So he had a lot of friendships there too. And we, our first ask was to the parent, so we went out to John Pankow and Christine Sutherland, who are married in real life and had never worked together before. So that was really fun. And they immediately said yes. And I think they just kind of set the bar. Once they said yes, then we just had, it was just incredible. The people who said yes to us to come in for one scene, we're like, wouldn't it be dreamy if we could get so-and-so? And they're like, let's ask. And I'm like, oh God. And they would come back, they're like, they're in. And it's like, holy crap. I mean, it was just one after the other. Every scene. And it wasn't really about us getting like the fanciest person, like Jack and Steve it was important to them that like, even if so-and-so was interested, we didn't want to just plop some cameo in where it didn't really make sense. Every person was just perfectly cast and brought so much, whether they had 3 lines. And like, I think Steve said the other day, he was like, there could have been a movie about any one of those characters. Like we could have just literally followed any of them. It was just an incredible, I'm just so grateful to the people who said yes and who, they liked the script and believed in us and said, yes, I will forever be grateful. It's just
and it was so easy, to work with them, because they would be there for a day or 2 days, and they would come in and, they're so professional, everything would be memorized. And, Steve and I would be talking, we'd talk with Finnerty and Katie, and we would just say, oh, this is how we see this scene going. And then you have Richard Mazer come in, and when you see him and then you hear his voice and he's sitting in the desk, you're just like, you know what? I was like, these guys know what's going on. I was like, and, you just couldn't ask for anything better. They just come in, they do their job. It's like, it's aces all around, and then we move on.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like each one of these actors, they're not just amazing actors that have acres and acres of credits on IMDb or whatever, but they're also these lived in character actors that is exactly, if you're a filmmaker, you want that person on your set because that person does set the tone, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, here's the other thing that struck me. The film, for me, I kept thinking of An Unmarried Woman, the Paul Mazursky, Jill Clayburgh movie.
Yes.
As I was watching the film.
Yes.
And there was one scene in particular that I paused after the scene. I said, that was a 70s movie moment right there. And the moment was the taking off of the wedding ring.
Mm.
And it really struck me how it was shot, how it was performed, how it was framed, the gravitas in there. It really was a special thing that just threw me back to 70s cinema. And so as I watched it, I said, you know something, I really want to hear them talk about the influences of the film, because I know it's a personal story, but as a filmmaker, you know, and filmmakers, because this is a tandem directing and, you know, and a triad with Finnerty very much obviously steering this as well. I really wanted the two of you to talk about your influences going into this.
Do you want to talk about that, Jack? I know
Yeah,
you.
sure. For me, it was more from a cinematography, you know, point of view. We knew that it was going to take place in the diner, so we were able to scout. And the diner was very narrow, so we also knew that. And luckily, we had lots of mirrors going on across the other side. But we knew we wanted to get the profile shot of the ring, and when she was taking it off. And originally, that was going to be a long zoom in that we ended up cutting off, where, you know, after he takes the order and she takes the ring off, and it's all from a side angle that you could see it. We were trying to figure out how we could kind of do that shot in one go at it. Not the whole scene, but just that moment. And it just worked out better to like see her face and then go back, and, you know, because it got too dramatic again. So then it was with the, what's, I can never remember her name, the cook.
Oh, Ashley Atkinson.
Yeah, Ashley, yeah. But, you know, so to then throw her back in and the whole comedy of it, you know, but as far as the shots go, yeah, we didn't really, I mean, maybe there was an influence in the writing, you know, from other things, but Steve and I pretty much, you know, sat down with the cinematography. We're trying to figure out how to make it as impactful as possible. And we just got a great location. That diner really helped us, you know, pull off that scene to look beautiful. And Finn, I'd love to.
I know initially you guys, that one of the packets that you put together for us, you know, to reach out was talking about the influences of the films of the 70s, you know, in terms of like, I'm blanking on some of them, but you guys put together that really cool.
Right.
Yeah, remember there is.
Memory, yeah.
Yeah, no, there was, and I'm blanking on the films that were in there. I want to say I have certain pictures of, but but, you know, we talked about Woody Allen a little bit, you know, in terms of, you know, and then even like that long shot of Aaron and I walking down the park. We sort of, you guys copied that from one of the Woody Allen ones.
Yeah, you're totally right. I forgot all about that.
I believe you guys copied that. You know, I mean,
we had a lookbook when we first started. You know, so Steve and I would get on the same page, and then we would share it around just to be like, "This is what we're thinking." I completely forgot about that part.
I was watching an old 70s film. I think it was a Scorsese, like an early Scorsese film where they're watching the girl on the street, remember? And I'm like, I take my phone out and I was like, can we do something like this?
That's right, you sent it to us, yes.
So that shot of Jenny walking from the thing, you know, it was basically like we kind of, from like an early 70s Scorsese movie. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I also have to say that, you know, we've seen a number of films that make fun of acting and the process. But, you know, I do have to say, the audition room, you know, the audition waiting room scene with the models was especially hilarious to me. And I think anybody who ever had the opportunity to do a commercial audition and have to audition with models, in the same vicinity, would be both crying and laughing at the same time watching that. I mean, you guys nailed that so well.
Thank you. Yeah, we wanted to also point out, you know, just the absurdity of that world that forces us to either be one of three camps. You're either the hot model, you're the neutral mommy, or you're the character lady that sells Tums. Like there's and it's like you are one of those three things.
Right. And I just, I just remember being in, because I started off as an actor and being in those commercial casting spaces, and there'd be a handful of people with the kids because it would be a kids audition, and they're screaming, or they're all being groomed in their, Disney Nickelodeon-esque little world. And then there would be, your veteran, actors. It'd be like, your top 8 that are called in every time. And then there would be, the other, and they're all just like those scenes. You're all in the same space, and you've got the, the whatever the markups of what the commercial is going to be. And you wander around and you go, why didn't I get called on this one? What happened there? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny. Steve Kunkin, the co-director, his daughter is in that scene, and he told a story last time. He was saying, like, so we did the master shot in the beginning, and at the end of it, she's like, "Oh, so we're done. We can go home now." And he's like, "No, we're just beginning. You're gonna be here all day." It's like kind of a rude awakening for her. But she went to the craft service table. And I think she was happy.
All right. So the last question I have. Affinity is for you, because again, when you are dramatizing stuff that happened to you, and and you're putting that both on the page, and then you're seeing it staged and filmed, and then you're watching it over and over, variations on it when you're going through the editing process. There's catharsis, there is a removal from it. There is acceptance that this is a version of a version of a version. Mm-hmm. And I would really like you to talk about, it's like the 7 stages of death, like acceptance, denial, whatever, right? I think when you develop something that's personal to you like this, that you have a very similar kind of process. And I would love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, in writing it, I knew that I was writing my side of it, and even then I'm like, so I've always been fascinated, like, what actually happened, like what, and how our memories change. So there was sort of my memory of it. Then it takes on a life of its own, right? Because then you bring on the whole team, and then suddenly you're like, oh, what if that scene didn't take place there? That way we can save a location. What if that were at the diner instead? So already it's becoming something else. Then there's the actors come in, and you're like, oh, wow, okay. So then it keeps building. So and I will say that even in the writing of it, though, it really was Jenny and David's story and not my story. Of course, I understood Jenny in a way that I knew exactly who she was and what she was feeling, but it was not my story and my ex's story. It was definitely inspired. And there were certain moments definitely that were word for word, or the way I remember it. But even if, like even Jenny's favorite memory, I'm obsessed with this idea of like what someone the other day was asking about the memory of her teacher with the little Buddha. And I have a terrible memory. This is why I'm obsessed with this idea of memory. I have a really, really bad memory. So I was like, did that really happen? I honestly don't, to this day, I'm not even sure if that was the combination, if we added the little Buddha, because of I like already I'm like getting myself mixed up with the character with the, so, but I will say, the making of this definitely felt like some sort of, and as actors, we like, we use our pain and joy to tell stories. In all honesty, I felt like the whole time I was playing Jenny, the only scene that I felt like was cathartic in maybe a not so great way was the scene where she discovers that he's cheating and finds the number. I didn't realize it at the time, but when we finished that scene, the crew kind of erupted and was like, holy shit. And, sorry, I'm not, and I remember taking the subway home that day, and I went, oh gosh, I don't have to hold on to that anymore. Like, I didn't realize I was playing that one over and over, but I was like, I don't need to record that. I don't need to hold it. And so that felt like I was letting that go. That was the only one that I felt a little like guilty that I was sort of working some stuff out, you know. But otherwise, I felt like it was something other than me. But that one definitely felt like I was, you know, doing that. But
well, you know, again, you know, I think this film is, you know, alternatively hilarious, touching, heartbreaking, you know, soul scrubbing, you know, all those things that you know that we go through, you know, in those moments. To you know, to the credit of the two of you, you know, and our third member of the team that is not here, Jack and Finnerty, thank you for being here. Again, we've been talking about before, during, after on Films Gone Wild.
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. Thank you, John.
Okay, all right, and so now we're going to bring in